Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com. Now, this show is brought to you by Props, our title sponsor. Props is a performance-driven content platform that combines the attraction of creator content with the results of paid media. Instead of a focus on impressions and posts, Props takes responsibility for leads and customers. Check them out at props.co. I'm here today with my guest, Kip Knight. Today's topic, putting the chief in CMO. Being good at marketing just isn't enough. Now, Kip is the founder of CMO Coaches, which provides executive coaching to current and aspiring CMOs. Previously, he was the CMO of Taco Bell, the president of H&R Block US Retail, and the creator of CMO Bootcamp, which trains folks on becoming a CMO. Full disclosure, Kip and I worked together at P&G, and I've been a bootcamp instructor. Kip is also a CMO Confidential OG, as he was a guest twice in the early days of our show. It's great to have him back. Welcome, Kip.
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here. I was wondering, at SNL, if you were here 5 times, you get a jacket. All right, you got a CMO Confidential jacket that you're prepared for here.
We're gonna have to think about it, but probably not. Though I am wearing your LSU shirt.
It looks very good. Go Tigers. Well done.
There you go. Purple too, as well, which is the color of the show. So let's get on with the show. We want to talk about LSU football, even though it's way past the season. Probably a season you don't need to remember. I'll set the stage by saying one of our earlier guests said the CMO job is 90% chief and 10% marketing. But many companies and pretty much almost all business schools spend almost all their time training people to be strong marketers. Kip, talk to us about your perspective on this chief and marketing split.
Mike, I want to paint a visual in your head, and I'll be referring to this for the rest of the conversation. So imagine a bullseye, like an archery bullseye that's got 3 circles inside each other. And in the very center of it is the marketing chief. And we'll start with that one. But then I'd like to layer on top in the middle circle, what I'll call the first team chief. I'll explain that in a minute. And then finally,
just so everybody knows, when you say first team, you mean the first team of the company, like the executive team, right?
First team, the executive team of the company. And I'll talk about why that's important. And then the third team is what I'll call the company ambassador chief. So let's go back to the center of the bullseye, and that's the marketing chief.
All right, let's talk about the marketing chief. And I'll just also put one more overarching comment on this. We had Seth Matlins on the show, and he called the CMO the most challenging job in business due to the intersection of technology, data, customers, and the company. So, and that's just the marketing part of it. Let's just talk about that.
Well, I totally agree. It's the toughest job in the C-suite for a couple of reasons. First of all, and you talked about this a number of times on your show, Mike. If you're the CFO, the job spec and the role and responsibility are pretty consistent. Doesn't matter if you're a startup or Fortune 500. If you are a CMO at a startup, you have a radically different set of responsibilities than if you were the CMO at Taco Bell, like I was. Yeah. And the other challenge you've got is you've got a group of people you're working with who all think they're better marketers than you are. I ask that question everybody I get talked to. There's just something about marketing. Everybody,
and we're not talking about the marketers on your team. You're talking about the rest of the
world.
Now, everybody thinks they can do marketing, and then everyone goes home and uses a new tool or reads an article on what's going on now in TikTok or AI, and they come in and they say, how come we're not doing this? But you're right. Sorry, keep going.
Well, no, and so, the day that you did the job, I just want to remind everybody that the CMO, the chief title is earned, not given. You have got to demonstrate why you deserve to be the marketing chief. And I've got a couple of thoughts surrounding that. The first is, if you're an aspiring CMO, and that's your ultimate destination. And Mike, you've done it 5 times now. You have got to start thinking about that well before you get into the role. And one of the first things, I'd love to hear your reaction to this, is it's a little bit like being a symphony conductor. You don't necessarily need to know how to play every single instrument in the orchestra, but you need to know what good looks like. And so as you're coming up through your career path, I would encourage any aspiring CMOs, if they want to be the chief marketing officer, to know enough about each of the marketing functions so they can not only know what good looks like, they can evaluate talent, they can know where they need to strengthen their team. And frankly, they need to be able to get to the point where they can delegate as much of the data responsibilities as possible to that marketing team. So Mike, what's your reaction on that? I'm getting ready.
I think that's dead right. And I would add curiosity into that mix. And let's look at marketing with this. There's all these tools. There's all the old tools you may have seen, like television, search, CRM, all the new tools like influencers, AI, everything else that's coming out, the power of big data. Your job is to stack all those tools together,
right,
and make them work. And there's no way you can have intimate knowledge of every tool,
right?
Much less how they stack together. Your job, though, is to coordinate those tools and your org in a way you get the most out of stacking them all up, and then get the right talent to run them. If you have only experienced 1 or 2 of those tools in your life, and this is a lot of people come out of performance marketing only, they get in the CMO job and they can't manage the rest of the functions.
Right.
They want to run it like they run performance marketing, and some of those functions, particularly if you throw in PR and everything else, they don't run that way. And you have to have curiosity as to how they actually run and how consumers experience them, and then how to stack them. So I think that is a really good comment by you. And also the need to get talent that can run some of these competencies.
Yes.
Know it better than you. That is also a skill that you want to be working on.
Yes, exactly. Because frankly, you're never going to get outside that first circle of marketing chief unless you are, kicking butt and taking names in that marketing role. If the house is on fire, you're not going to be able to do anything else. And so just to go back and reemphasize the importance of that role, more than any other level function I can think of, you've got to go to school every day. You've got to be, I like the word curious. You've got to have a hunger to learn. You've also got to be flexible in your thinking, because Mike, think about how many times, what was good is not
good anymore.
It's obsolete. It's out the window.
And also you have to ask, why did consumers do this? Or why did my target market do this? Not like, how come they didn't do what I wanted them to do?
Right.
Damn it, I just got to try harder. That's probably not the reason.
Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for CFOs, but I would argue that CMOs, if they're successful, have got to be just aggressively curious, aggressively hunger for more knowledge, and also very open-minded. So it takes a very special individual to be able to master all those things. So anywho, that is the first circle. If you can do that, if you can get to the point where you've got a strong team that you can delegate to, get what good looks like, and the marketing function is doing what it needs to be doing, I think then and only then you can proceed to the second circle in this bullseye that I've talked about. And that's this first team concept.
Let's talk about first team. But first, what are the biggest mistakes you see CMOs making in this inner circle of just being marketing competent?
Well, you preached about a couple of these before, so I'll just reemphasize what you've said. But the first and the biggest one is a lack of alignment with the CEO and the CFO in terms of what marketing is going to deliver. Marketing is a means to an end. It is not an end to itself. One big mistake I've seen plenty of marketers make, especially in front of boards, is they'll just talk ad nauseum about marketing metrics, and they do not get the big picture. They do not get the punchline, and they do not recognize they are not communicating with the rest of the board, which, by the way, 90% of them don't have any marketing background whatsoever. But that doesn't stop them from feeling like they're all marketing experts. So you have got to be fanatical about the financials and the ultimate delivery of whatever the company is all about. And if you don't have a real comfortable knowledge of that, and you're not able to connect all the dots and say, hey, all this good marketing stuff is going to lead to greater revenue, greater profit, more loyal customers, a stronger brand, equity, et cetera, you're living on borrowed time. So that's the biggest mistake I see. And Mike,
I agree with
give me an amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Like if you translate your marketing for financial people, don't make them try and understand your language. Let's go to the first team chief. Like, what is the first team, and tell us about it.
I'm a big fan of Pat Lencioni. He's the founder and the CEO of the Table Group. He's written a number of really great books. You've probably read some of them: The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The Advantage. His latest one is called Working Genius. Strongly recommend you read any of those. They're really good. But his whole point is, and it's a little bit counterintuitive, but his whole point is, as the chief marketing officer, you have got to be more loyal and more interested in what your first team is doing, even above the marketing. And what do I mean by that? It means that if you cannot spend the time and the effort getting to really know and appreciate and understand where the other C-level executives are coming from, especially the CFO, then it doesn't really matter what the marketing team is doing. If you're not totally aligned with your first team, and you're willing to back whatever direction they want to go, then you're probably going to all fail. And again, I've seen that too many times where if a business especially is in trouble, the first gut reaction the CFO is going to have is cut marketing. And then it starts this death spiral, and everybody starts, interviewing for jobs somewhere else, and the agency gets disillusioned, et cetera, et cetera. The contrast to that is if you have an aligned first team and you've got a CMO that is actively working on building relationships, especially with the CFO, with that first team, and the CMO is really good at going back and translating to the marketing team exactly what the marketing team needs to do for the overall business to succeed, then you're looking at a formula for success. And so that's the reason the first team is so important, and why you've got to spend the time making sure that you work closely with them to make you're not just initially aligned, but you're continually aligned no matter what the business does.
And look, I think there's a very important thing about the first team, which is that's the score you care about most, which is the company score. And marketing is a mean to the end for the company score. And I think a lot of marketers can get hung up on how well they're doing and maybe not translating that to the first team outcomes.
I think you've given a number of examples with the various podcasts you've had in terms of the importance of first team, even though you might not have called it that. I'd say an acid test for first team is how much of an alignment and frankly a partnership do you have with your CFO. If it gets tough, and the CFO is protecting your marketing budget because the CFO absolutely believes the importance of the marketing investment, then you have succeeded as a first team member. If the opposite of that is true, you probably have failed. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that is dead right, which is you want the company to understand what you're trying to accomplish versus being some special function hanging out in the company. And if you act like a special function, like nobody understands our creative but us, and we care a lot about brand metrics and consideration, and they will inevitably translate to sales. Take our word for it. You are by definition not getting followers, and you need those followers in other functions to understand what you're doing and to be aligned with it, so that they see marketing as a means to their end, not just a special thing that the marketers do in their wing or their floor.
Yeah, let me build off of that, because I talked to a number of CEOs that are hiring coaches for their CMO. And one of the number one complaints I get from CEOs is the CMO is not willing to go out there and preach the gospel of marketing to the rest of the company. And CMO, and Mike, I'm sure you did this. I know I did. You've got to take every opportunity to go to any all hands meeting or any departmental meeting that's not marketing.
Everyone.
And
fire and brimstone, baby. Fire and brimstone.
Well, and get them excited. Make them feel like they're part of the marketing team. Help them understand that Everybody's a marketer, and marketing is not exclusive to the marketing department.
Well, and I think when you go out explaining why you're doing it, not just sharing what you do.
Right.
It's important, and why you're doing it in a way it's going to impact the financials and the growth of the company.
Yeah.
Using yourself as a growth engine, I think that's super helpful. And I'm sure you've done a lot of this too with your companies and your boards.
Absolutely. And, boy, I tell you, one of the things I think all CMOs need to be really great at is storytelling. I know you're a great storyteller. I enjoy telling stories. And the more stories that you can tell in front of these different groups as to the role of marketing and the role of your company and what makes your company special and different, the better, because that creates a really strong culture in which everybody feels like they're on the same team.
All right. So do we go to the third team yet, or do you want to talk more about the first team?
No, I think that's pretty much it for first team. The first team principle, I think, is a fairly simple one, but it's one that requires continual focus and effort. And frankly, it's comfortable to kind of fall back into your marketing silo, just hang out with the agency and hang out with your marketing team and talk marketing speak all day long. But that is a formula for failure, because you have got to go out there on a daily basis and make sure that you are preaching the gospel of marketing across the entire company, not just, the people that have already converted. So
they're already the believers. The other thing I think I cannot emphasize enough, the storytelling component of why you are doing it and how this should translate into the company's good. Not just that it's really good work, but how it helps the company grow and succeed.
So, and the theme behind all of that you could just use as a bit of a roller, or an acid test. And I know you know this already. The role of marketing primarily is to listen and respond to the voice of the customer. I mean, you cannot say that enough. And the more you can go to the rest of the organization and explain, this is what the customer is thinking and feeling and doing and reacting to relative to competition. And this is what we're doing in response to that, both in terms of marketing and all the other things we're doing, because that is what I think makes marketing unique. You're the only one that's going to be the representative of that customer on a daily basis, reminding everybody, why are we here and why is it important?
Great. Let's go to the third type of chief. I called it the third team, but really it's the third chief, which is you call it the company ambassador chief. What is that, and why should people think about it?
Okay, so let's assume that you've done a great job and you've got a highly functioning marketing team that's humming along, and you've delegated to them, and they're nailing it, and they're delivering not only the marketing metrics, but financial metrics. Let's assume that you've done a great job with the first team. You're aligned with the organization. You're aligned with what the CEO and the CFO want to do, and you're also aligned in terms of having everybody in the company feel like they understand the marketing mission and what they can do about it. Then and only then do you get permission to go to this third level.
And I want to emphasize then and only then.
Then and only then, because
that means marketing.
If you're doing the marketing and if you're doing the company ambassador before you've done step 1 and step 2, it's not going to end well.
It's not, because step 1 is you're doing really good marketing. Step 2 is the company understands and is supporting you. Step 3 is, here we go.
Well, step 3 is, and again, we're storytellers. We should be looking for any and all opportunities to go tell the story of the company to the rest of the world. And what are some specific ways in which you can do that? You've already mentioned public relations, but I think public relations is an area that if you're really good as a marketer, you should be able to work closely with not only your PR company, but also, frankly, if you're in certain categories, your lobbyists, and try to figure out, how is our company being perceived? Is that how we want it to be perceived? What are some big issues going on out in the real world that are going to affect the way that positioning is going to be impacted? And how do we proactively get ready for that? So, rather than just delegate things like, PR or lobbying to some other part of the organization, I would totally embrace it and make sure it's totally integrated with whatever the marketing message you've got to have. Because if you don't do that, like target customer, And it's really important to continually reinforce those things that make your company unique, special, and worth paying attention to.
Well, and also that earned media can really help drive a lot of business results depending on how it works. So you talked about the three chiefs.
Okay.
So, the three levels. How do you know? You've done a lot of coaching, done CMO boot camp. How do you know you actually have enough experience to ascend to the actual CMO role? Like, how do you gauge what you know? Are you ready to be in these three chiefs? How do you get good at it?
Well, I think it starts ideally at the beginning of your career. So if we've got some ambitious, young, aspiring, versions of Mike Linton 30 years ago.
Yeah. Wait, Kip, you just froze.
CMOs as you can.
Hey, yep. You just froze. You just froze. Start that answer all the way again.
Okay. So one of the ways I think you can best get ready for it is to go out and actually talk to as many CMOs as you can. And as a young marketer, frankly, I think that, especially with LinkedIn and a lot of the networks that are available out there, if somebody came up to you, Mike, and said, boy, you've been such a successful CMO. I'd love to get 15 minutes of your time to learn. How can I get prepared to be a great CMO? Would you grant them an audience?
Usually, I'll talk to almost anybody. I know you will too. Most CMOs will. But I also think the thing is, you have to take an inventory of what you're good at and not good at before you ask. Like, and that curiosity about what am I not good at? And how do I get better at it is really important. And that curiosity of having all three of these chiefs or a full portfolio of skills is a really big deal. So keep going on how you get ready, because you can ask people, but you can also practice a lot.
You can. And again, you and I are both believers in annual development plans. And to your point, because people will tell you what you're not good at, people will tell you what you need to work on. And
sadly, they'll tell you a lot of what you're not good at.
Yeah. And again, I believe your primary focus should be on doubling down on your strengths, just like Michael Jordan was a great basketball player and not so hot in terms of baseball. But you can really identify in your development plan on an annual basis, here are the one or two things I really want to get better at. And here specifically are some ways I can go do that. I can either go get additional training. I can take on a special project. I can maybe even go work in a different function. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you had a marketer that felt like they were not really strong in the finance area. Well, why not have them do a special project working with the finance team to try to, develop some more insightful analytics, or to go, study a particular financial issue that's coming up. In other words,
go listen to earnings calls and then run accounting stuff on your own and listen to analyst calls. And there's lots of things you can learn from, including, there's tons of ways to learn financials, including asking the financial people to train you.
And they'll probably be flattered that you took the time to do that, because frankly, that's probably something that's never happened in the history of the company. But you're only limited by your imagination. And I would encourage people to be creative and come up with different ways of learning and satisfying that curiosity quotient. The other thing that I would emphasize is that as the boss of that person, it is really important that they support that and do everything they can to get that person ready, because, and Mike, I can say that I'm sure you can too. One of the biggest satisfactions you'll have as a manager of marketing talent is to see those people continue to grow and rise and go off later on and become probably even stronger marketers than you were. And looking back over the number of people that I've trained over the years and still stay in touch with, that is incredibly gratifying. So for all you marketing bosses out there, put the effort in to train your young talent. It will come back and many, many rewards.
But I have to add one thing on training. You're not a good trainer if you tell your people they're great all the time and they're good at everything. I
never said that, Mike.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, what you see when you're coaching a lot of people is they've been told they're great all the time. and they've been told they're really good. And I think what you want is a trainer that will find areas you're not so good at or you haven't been exposed to and force you into them, and then force you to take your good skills and make them great. And one of the ways you don't do that is by rating everybody at the top of the scale on everything, because you're not really training them for the real game. You're just making them feel good. And that training is really important.
You're absolutely doing them a disservice, because when they get into a situation where they really need to know that, and they think they've got the gold star and they find out they don't really know the basics, they're going to get crushed, because people can figure out very quickly if their boss is bullshitting them or not. And to have a boss that knows what good looks like, you're going to have a lot different relationship than one in which you can go in there and feel like, well, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. I can tell him anything, he'll believe it. So no, you got to hold the standard high. It's just like being an athlete and thinking that you can just skip out on all the training and skip out on all of the requirements. And you've got to be ready to play ball the day you show up on the field.
Well, and we've also established that the tools, the math, the data, the integration, everything else is evolving at speed. So the idea that you are good at it ever says you are trying to be just at the front end of it is a super important training thing, which is your goal is to just to stay at the front end of technology, meaning the company, meaning the customer, not to get a lot of satisfaction that you have it all wired. You're never going to have it all wired.
Well, like one of I mentioned Pat earlier, the guy that the table group, the guy I mentioned earlier, he's got a great way to think about this. He says, anybody who's going to do well has got to be hungry, humble, and smart. And I love that, because if you've got all three of those, you're ready. If you're lacking on any of those three, you're in trouble. So as a manager, I want you to think about whether or not your team is hungry, humble, and smart. If you're not, what are you doing about it?
All right. I think this gets us a good way to get us to our last question. It's a two-parter, as you know, since you're one of the OGs. Funniest story you can tell on the air, and or practical advice to our listeners we haven't discussed yet. You can take both or one, but you have to take at least one.
Like, humor is a very dangerous thing, so I'm going to pass on the humor, even though you're funny.
I'll do the humor for both of us.
But let me just close with one thought, and it's going to sound a little bit sappy, but I don't care. I think it's still true. And that is, the journey is the reward. And what do I mean by that? You and I both know John Pepper. He was the CEO at P&G. I would argue maybe the greatest CEO at P&G. And I talked to him one time about how he was enjoying the role of CEO. And he told me something that was pretty surprising. He said, actually, my favorite job was when I was brand manager on Scope mouthwash. And I was like gobsmacked, like, why? I mean, I would think CEO would be a much cooler job than that. And the reason he gave for feeling that way was, he said, I felt like I was in totally control of my destiny. You know, I had my brand, I had my team, I had my my agencies. I knew exactly what the competition was all about. So every day was just a real fun day to come in and build the business and feel like you were doing things I had a lot of control over. As opposed to CEO, where it's like playing dodgeball every day. You're like, you get to go in there, you don't even see where the next missile's coming from. It's just incredibly intense and high paced and tough. So the lesson I take away from that is enjoy the journey. No matter if you're a brand assistant or you're the CEO or anything in between, I would just urge people to step back periodically and really relish what they're enjoying about the job, because, Mike, as you and I know even more now than we did a long time ago, it goes by very quickly. And if you don't stop and really appreciate what's going on, including the people you're working with, you're really missing out.
I think that's a great way to end the show. Thank you, Kip. Thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential, and thanks to props.co, our title sponsor. Look for more of our shows on the I Hear Everything Network, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, which include Marketing, the battle between believers and non-believers, parts 1, 2, and 3. The rise and fall of Peloton as seen through the eyes of CLTV, and Kip's earlier shows, Why Marketers Should Learn Finance and why the short shelf life of CMOs. Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential.